My name is Michael. I work for the Secretariat of the International Land Coalition, which is a network of intergovernmental and civil society organizations with a common aim to work for security of land rights for communities, for women and for men who live on and use the land. We're quite a diverse coalition, and we have 207 members based in over 60 countries around the world. But our members share a common concern and a common recognition that the processes we see of large-scale land acquisitions around the world have really fundamental implications. They have fundamental implications for not only how we feed ourselves and how we use our land resources, but for issues like climate change and for the very ways that societies are organized. And you've heard some of the testimonies from my colleagues on the panel here of those. There are many, many ways that our members and many others are working to understand this phenomenon and to engage with it. But I'd like to share with you one of them, and this is an attempt to maybe step back from the country case studies that you've been hearing and try and understand globally what characterizes the phenomenon of large-scale land deals around the world. How much land does it involve? Where? For what? So it's largely numbers I'm going to show you. It's not to say that these are not very human stories about people, about the lives of people, and about societies. That's another part of the story, but we're trying in this website to work together with many partners around the world to just try and get the data that will give us a bit of an understanding. Our assumption is to engage with something, to change and to transform a process, you need to understand it. You need to understand what's happening. So this is the website, Land Matrix. The site is landmatrix.org. I'll give you a very quick dip into it. There's a lot of layers of this website, and there's many, you can get very general information and very specific information. But just to give you an idea, actually, let me just give you the summary. In this website at the moment, we have just over 1,000 deals that we have tried to get various information on. There's about 80 fields that we try and get for each deal that cover 40.5 million hectares. What are we tracking here? What is a deal? A deal is an acquisition of land of over 200 hectares that involves a change of use. So it's changed from community land or land which performed important ecosystem services into private commercial production. So we're not trying to trace one large farmer that sells their farm to another large farmer, but where there's a significant change in ownership and use of the land. We also try and trace the history of deals. So you'll see, I'm looking at the figures at the top here, you will see that there's over 20 million hectares of deals which are still under negotiation. So these are deals which are not finalized, and almost 7 million hectares of deals which have failed. Now, the first thing that I will say to you is this is not a picture of reality. Don't take it that all over the world there's 40 million hectares of land which has been acquired for large-scale commercial production. The figure is many times more than that. This is not an attempt to say this is what reality is. This is an attempt to say we are over time building up a picture which gets closer to reality, but it changes. This number changes all the time as we get more information. And the reason is, as you know, that so many of these deals are characterized by a lack of transparency, a lack of participation, a lack of consultation. It's very hard to get accurate data. So there's many reasons that this data might be biased or wrong, but at the moment, it's the best picture that we have. Here's a summary of the relationship between investor countries and target countries. And just to give you an idea, I don't know if that's too small for you to see, but if you look at the top 10 countries in the database, you'll immediately start getting a picture that this is not just a story of China grabbing land in the rest of the world. It's much more complex than that. The number one investor country here is USA, with over 6 million hectares of land acquired in other countries. You will see European countries, you will see emerging economies such as Brazil, Malaysia. You see food insecure countries such as United Arab Emirates, India, China. So it's a real mix of traditional investors and emerging investors. If you want to zoom down to which countries are investing, this is a map of countries in the database that have acquired land in other countries. For the sake of simplicity, since we're in Spain, let's have a look at Spanish companies. So there are 15 Spanish companies, and you can see Spanish companies investing in large areas of land overseas are going everywhere. We see Central America, we see Latin America, we see North, West, and Southern Africa, and we see Eastern Europe as well. You can also explore. You can explore by. You can explore by investor countries as well, if I can work out how to get there. By target countries. So these are countries that are receiving investment, because we had my colleague here from Madagascar. If you have a look at who's investing in Madagascar, again, it's a mix of European and Asian countries. And if you want to get the detail, you can go in and you can look at each of these investments, and you can follow the routes between different countries. So immediately you get a picture of what Michel said in the very first panel this morning, of the fact as land becomes a tradable commodity, what it means around the world, in who's making decisions, where the power lies in decisions over land. What we're tracking here is a number of sectors: agriculture, tourism, timber. Mining is not there, and as we know, mineral extraction is a very, very large driver of demand for land. So it's a partial data set at best. But we see this as a long-term project. This is what we have here is a product of about 5 years of a growing partnership of organizations around the world, including our friends in Madagascar. But this is a long-term project for us. We see it's in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, in the next 30 years, slowly building up a more and a detailed picture. It's not only a lot of it covered, but it's also changing a lot. If you go and you can follow a deal and the change that happens, how much land was acquired, how much of that land that was acquired is used, how much is abandoned, which contracts have been revoked, what's happened to that same land, how it's gone to another investor. So that's an overview. It's landmatrix.org, and I encourage you not only to explore it and find information which is useful to you, but also to contribute. There's a lot of the data that's in here has been contributed by many, many organizations around the world who found it useful for this information to be more visible. Thank you.